Hey everyone, I'm Vishnupriya,
And I'm Rohan.
and in this video, we will share everything you need to know about planning your trip to Portugal. We recently visited Portugal towards the end week of December and spent about 8 days overall, 3 days in Lisbon and 5 days in Algarve. And if you want, you can also extend your trip by adding Porto to the list.
Yeah, so we will talk about how to get there, best time to visit, how much to budget, where to stay, how to commute, and stay tuned till the end as we share some tips from the locals. In this video, we won't be talking about detailed itineraries from Lisbon or Algarve because we've made separate videos on them, so feel free to check those out. And yeah, without any further delay, let's get started.
Now, the best time to visit Portugal. Well, Portugal is always sunny, and honestly, it's a country that you can visit year round. But the locals say that the best time to visit is during the shoulder season, which is in spring between March to May, or autumn, which is September and October. Now, that is because the weather is quite pleasant, but the crowds are less. And further, we spoke to locals in Algarve and they recommended that October is actually the best time to visit the Algarve region.
Yeah, that's true. And now talking about summer, which would be between June to August, that's of course a great time for beach lovers to go, but definitely expect a lot of crowds and things can get expensive in that season. We went in December, which of course is not ideal for beach hopping and water activities, but the winter is mild and super comfortable if you want to explore Portugal in its own serenity. The early mornings and evenings were also chilly in December, but we had sun almost all days of our trip. Now let's talk about how to reach Portugal. Lisbon has the main international airport, Humberto Delgado Airport. If you're flying directly to the Algarve, the main airport is Faro, which is also an international airport but won't really cater to long haul flights from the America or India.
If you're traveling from the UK, then of course British Airways has direct flights from Heathrow, but there are also a lot of budget airlines such as from Stansted, Gatwick and Luton, and you've got Ryanair, TAP Air and all of these flights that are also flying directly to Lisbon and even Faro.
You won't have direct flights from everywhere. For example, if you're coming from India, you might have to take layover in London or Paris.
Or even Dubai, I think.
Yeah, so take that into account.
Although you would want to stay in Portugal forever, but jokes aside, in Lisbon we would recommend at least 3 days, and in Algarve at least 5 days if you want to have a relaxed trip, but you also want to make sure that you've covered all the important touristy spots in Portugal. And if you would also want to add Porto to the list, then just add 3 more days to your trip, and that would also include traveling from Lisbon to Porto and vice versa.
Some of the top things that we did in Lisbon were enjoying the soulful fado music like a local, visiting the enchanted fairy tale town of Sintra, the sunset boat tour over the Tagus River, and enjoying the delicacies of Lisbon such as pastel de nata, ginginia, and of course the seafood.
Some of the highlights of our time in Algarve were undoubtedly the road trip and the various stops that we made along the way, and we were continuously beach hopping as well. I would say our resort was amazing too, and the 7 Hanging Valley trek, which was beautiful and I would highly recommend. And of course, last but not the least, the Benajil Caves. Having said that, we have detailed itineraries on both Lisbon and Algarve, and actually even Sintra. So if you're interested in checking them out, then feel free to pop onto our channel to find them. In Lisbon, we stayed in a budget boutique hotel called Quinta Colina by Chiado, and it was quite centrally located. It was actually very close to all the 3 ABCs of Lisbon, which is Alfama, Baixa and Chiado, and you could literally walk to all of these places from your hotel. We paid about 80 euros including breakfast, which in my opinion was slightly expensive considering the fact that we were visiting in December and it was off peak season. But also the location was great, so it's okay, and the hotel was quite clean. You could also consider staying in Alfama because it's got old town vibes. It's the oldest district of Lisbon. Having said that, Alfama has got a lot of stairs and a lot of hills, so be ready to walk a lot if you're staying in Alfama.
And in Algarve, we made Carvoyo as our base just because it is closely located to all the major attractions and even the famous cities or the towns of Algarve, such as Lagos, Portimao, Albufeira. We were close to all of them. And we were also close to the Faro airport, so it was a great deal for us. We stayed about 10 minutes away from Carvoyo main town in this hotel called Hotel Villa Alba. Paid about 80 euros per night for this luxurious experience at such an affordable price tag. So it was definitely a great deal. I believe we got such a cheap price just because we went there in December.
Definitely. Now, if you want, you could also choose to stay in a place like Albufeira, which has great nightlife, but then it does not have a lot of scenic spots. And then other place is Lagos, has a lot to do, but again it becomes really touristy. It all depends on what kind of vibe you want. For us, Carvoyo was the perfect place because it was just equidistant from all the main towns, and even Carvoyo beach was really beautiful, and Carvoyo was also very close to Faro airport. First of all, for all travels within Lisbon, public transport, Uber and Bolt are your best bet. Public transport and Ubers are very cheap, and we also got a Navigante card for public transport, which we could also use while traveling to Sintra via train. Also, for context, we took a cab from Lisbon airport to hotel in the city center, which was a 30-minute ride, and it cost us only 8 euros. Honestly, it's quite a bargain if you're coming from a place like London.
Now, for Lisbon to Algarve, we would highly recommend that you rent a car. There are plenty of options available, such as Avis, Hertz, or Europcar. We actually got our car from Europcar, which was a great deal. We paid around 300 euros for our entire journey, but if you can drive manual car, you can save a lot of money there as well. But yeah, big disadvantage of not having a car would be that you won't be able to stop at all of these beautiful locations or easily hop on between the different towns in Algarve.
Another benefit of hiring a car was that we could easily pick up the car from Lisbon, and we dropped off the car in Faro airport. If you actually don't want to take back the car to Lisbon, it's a great option.
Now, if you cannot drive or you don't want to drive, there are options available for trains or buses. I think the train takes about 3 hours to reach and costs you about 20 euros. So Lisbon and Algarve are full of cobbled streets, and especially Lisbon, there are a ton of steep hills over there. So it goes without saying that you need to pack comfortable walking shoes. Trust us, your feet will thank you. Also, just make sure you're packing light for this trip, because dragging a heavy suitcase up those steep hills is going to be a big task.
Now for clothing, summers is quite straightforward. Of course, make sure you're carrying a lot of breezy clothes and just be comfortable. For winters, however, I would say that it gets really chilly and windy during the evenings and also early morning. So definitely carry a jacket. I would also say carry at least 2 jackets if you can, because I really underestimated the weather in Lisbon and Algarve. And then I wore the same jackets for all my 8 days of the trip, and I looked the same in all the pictures. So you might as well just carry less of sweaters and carry more of jackets in case you want really good pictures. Now, talking about budget. Portugal is actually a much affordable country compared to a lot of Western European countries. So you could actually budget for about 120 to 150 euros per day per person, which could include your hotel, transportation, as well as meals. If you want to make it further budget, you can choose to stay in hostels, and then your cost can actually come down to about 50 euros to 80 euros per day per person.
Yeah, and to give you a little peek into how much we spent, we broke it down into accommodation, for which we spent about 337 euros, transport including the car we rented and the gas, which was around 207 euros, for the meals about 377 euros, and our flights costed 300 euros. And lastly, tickets and activities were around 98 euros. All these expenses are for one person, and I think the flight expenses were too much on our side despite flying from London. So make sure you're booking your tickets in advance. Doesn't matter which season you're flying in.
And All of these expenses are considering the fact that we visited in December, which is an off-peak season for Portugal. Alright, now let's talk about some of the tips that you would not usually find while Googling, and this is the stuff that you would get to know only once you visited Lisbon and Algarve. So first of all, please do not do Santa Just a lift. Now that lift actually takes you to a viewpoint which you can go for free. And you have to pay about €5.50 in order to take that lift, and trust me, even the locals never take it. There's a quick hack, just go around the lift and keep on walking straight, take a left, and you'd find an alley towards the right. Just follow that alley and you've got the same spot that the lift is taking you. So if the locals are not taking it, why are you? Now, the same goes for St. George's Castle. It's not a real castle, it's just an empty shell, but you end up paying €12.5 in order to go inside. Instead, we would highly recommend doing a sunset point for free, such as Miradoro de Senhora de Monte. And there you can see that castle against the backdrop of the Tagus River, which we would highly recommend doing. And third, in Lisbon, we would highly recommend doing a walking tour. We did a walking tour, but it was towards the end of our trip in Lisbon. But we wish we had done it in the beginning, because it just gives you so much context when you're there. You learn the culture and the hidden gems and the history of Lisbon. So your rest of the trip is more meaningful. We would link the walking tour that we did, and we would highly recommend that walking tour as well.
Now, coming to Algarve, it was such a sad news that we got to know you cannot really kayak or swim close to the Benajul cave. So as of August 2024, you cannot go inside the Benajul cave. All you can do is take a boat tour and go around that Benajul cave. And another tip is that book your Benajul boat tour as early as you can in your trip. Our boat tour got cancelled 3 times before we could actually go and see it. So yeah, just book your boat tour in your early days in Algarve, so even if it gets postponed, you are able to make it. Okay, so hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. We absolutely loved our time in Portugal. The food is great, the vibes are amazing, and it's such a mix of culture, history, and breathtaking views.
Definitely. And if you want, you can also further extend your trip. You can choose to drive further east and then end up in Sevilla or Granada in Spain. Or if you want, you can also head over to Madeira after your experience in Algarve. So if you liked our video, feel free to like and subscribe for more such content. Also, feel free to drop as many questions in the comments as possible. We will try our best to answer all of the comments that you may have. Until next time.